Welcome as we go on a walk and a talk through the town of Moate. We all have some interest in the past, our family story, and the community to which we belong. But Moate has had a rich and varied history and a unique landscape which contributed to the story. It has had many local historians who explored aspects of the story of Moate. Here in this library we have some of their books: Master Cox, Jerry Sheehan, Vera Hughes, Kieran Gavin, Rose Corrigan. I hope that this documentary serves as a guide to that story and as a source of historical general knowledge. So much of the history of Moate reflects the history of the country. So off we go. We're standing here in Moate. It's a busy street, but it wasn't like that 100 years ago. So we're going to look back at the history of the development of Moate and share with you that story. Welcome to Moate. Moate's unique in a sense that it owes its origin in part to the eskers that run in an east-westerly direction, north and south of the town. The eskers, of course, owe their origin to the great climate change 10,000 years ago, when the ice began to move and melt, and great rivers were formed under the ice walls. When the ice had moved away, what was left behind were ridges of sand and gravel that we have now and that we know as eskers. They varied in height from 10 to 30 meters, that those eskers were used as pathways, dryways from east to west. We are standing on the spur of an esker where the Anglo-Normans, Jutes, built the first motte and the coming through Moate. They built, in fact, altogether, the Anglo-Normans, some 400 mottes. This is one of them, and this was an important one. And down below here, they had the bailey. The bailey was an area about, usually quadrangular in shape. It was a place where they kept the horses and sheds and blacksmiths and other materials and people that they needed here. It also had palisades all around it to protect it. It was about 16 meters high, and the motte was about 9 meters here above it. So the motte was a special place. The bailey was a practical place where they lived and they worked. The feature which gave its name to Moate, in fact, was this motte. As I said, it was built by the Anglo-Norman Jutes on a spur of an esker. The 1520s, a girl called Grania Ogo Carroll, from a Munster lady, came up here and married one of the Mulauchlins. The Lord Mulauchlin, he who owned the castle. And she assumed the role of Brehon or judge when she was here. And what she did was she came up and sit on the esker here. She would make decisions and pass judgments on the people. And so afterwards it was called Moate Grania Oga, or the Moate of Grania Og. So that's where it got its name. Old Castle was built by the O'Loughlin clan in the early 15th century. Then in 1603 it was sold to the Dillon family of Drumraney, and they were there until the Cromwellian settlement, when it was forfeited and given to a Cromwellian soldier, Peter Humphreys, who sold it later to John Clibborn, an officer in the Cromwellian army. The date of the deed of sale, the 8th of July 1656, is still preserved in the castle. The Clibborn coat of arms are on the wall of the south side of the castle. The castle was the home of the Clibborn family until 1847. It was then rented to a Featherstone family. Since has been rented to many peoples, but the Mitchell family owned it since 1957. At the north of the castle, formerly the front of the castle, there is a Sheelanagig. We are now on the north side of the castle, formerly the front of the castle. And here over this door is a Sheelanagig. an unusual figure, of an exhibitionist figure. This one here is in a sunken oval, cement one. It's about 3.35 centimeters in height. It has a wide mouth, large lips, protruding tongue, and large teeth. Its function was to ward people off against sinning. It also was an icon put on public buildings to keep away evil. They were exhibitionist figures. Sheila in a giab means Sheila on her hunkers, or Sheila na giach, Sheila of the breast. We're here in the Quaker Cemetery in Moate. The Quakers were established by George Fox in the early 1600s. They were called Quakers, or the Society of Friends. They were called Quakers because George Fox said, "You must quake with fear of the Lord." And William Edmondson came to Moate here in 1658, and he went to visit a number of families here. They knew people who had been planted here. He went to English's of Tourphalem, and it was out in English's of Tourphalem when he was preaching that John Clibborn first met him. John became enhanced with that faith, and that faith was later to give them a sort of a faith, a fellowship, and a set of principles to live by. John Clibborn then had accepted them and had a meeting house in his place in Moate. That was the first meeting house after Tourphalem. Then he decided to give them an area of land for themselves. They would need a cemetery and they would need a meeting house. So he gave this place here, about a third of an acre, in 1660 to the Quakers. Now, while the first burials were here in the 1660s, there's no headstone was put up until 1807. So there's a lot buried here with no headstone to commemorate their passing. The headstones that they did put up were very simple. We're standing here at the last headstone to be erected here, the most recent one, to the memory of Henry Cooper Clibborn and his wife Frances Augustia Clibborn. Also, the last person to be buried here is James Clibborn, who was buried here in November 2022. This is Moate View, home of James Clibborn. He built this house in 1763. James was the son of John, and he's one of the key figures in the industrial family in the town. He was interested in two areas, the tannery and the linen factory. It's one of the oldest houses in Moate, I suppose, apart from the castle, which was built in the 15th century. In 1730, John Clibborn established a tan yard for the production of leather. That's situated near the castle on the east side of the town. Opposite the tan yard is the oatmeal and flour mill, established by Samuel Robinson for the production of oatmeal and flour. That was in 1733. It's built on the Clohatany River, and that building is still there. The Quakers were good business people. Many of them, of course, had received large tracts of land in the Cromwellian settlement. They began to develop a number of industries in the Moate area. Lime kilns were established, and the lime was used as a fertilizer. And the raw materials for all the industries that were later developed came from the land. So the agricultural revolution of those early days generated profit, which was invested in industry. The linen and woolen mills were built in the new town. The spinning took place in the factory while the weaving was done in the home. The linen mill was burnt down on the 6th of January 1839, the night of the big wind. Other industries developed, including felt, tweed, brewing, distilling. The brewing was situated about 100 metres out the Myvockley Road. Transformation of the economic life of the town gave rise to an increase in population and a demand for goods and services. As trades followed industry, people came to take advantage of the great industrial growth. There were carpenters, wheelwrights, shoemakers, saddlers, coach builders, blacksmiths, nailers, grocers, hardware merchants, tailors, dressmakers, silversmiths, cabinet makers, butchers, bakers, drapers and pubs. A good example of the economic diversity of life. The town continued to flourish during the 1700s, and by 1813 the population had reached 1,785, and prior to the famine the population was 2,095. This was the home of the Adamson family. They were brewers and distillers. They built this home in 1792. They had a distillery out on the Lake Road and a brewery on the Ballymore Road. On the entrance to the east and west of the town there were turnpikes. We are now on what was called the turnpike. It's on the eastern side. Turnpikes were gates or barriers to facilitate the collection of tolls. Tolls were used to maintain and develop the roads, and that brought a revolution in transport. (1750 to 1850) was called Free Market. The market was established here to avoid paying tolls. It was owned by the Clibburns. The sessions or courthouse and the jail were here in the new town. The courthouse moved to the main street in 1831, and the jail or bridewell moved to the main street in 1834. This is the location of the Wesleyan Methodist Church in the new town. It was opened in 1823 and wasn't closed till about the 1940s. John Wesley had visited Moate in 1748 and baptized a number of people here. It has since been used as a workshop and also a residence for people for many years. Standing here in front of the Carmelite Church in Moate, the Carmelites came here in the 1700s, around 1700 itself, and when they came here, the area was impoverished. They opened a number of small schools. They also had a primary school at the back, and then the Carmelite College opened in 1949. The church itself here, that was opened in 1868. It's a beautiful church, beautiful sandstone, and the spire wasn't finished until the 1880s. Money from that came, believe it or not, from the Argentine, where their Father MacDonald, a Carmelite, went out to work with the Irish, and when he was coming back, they gave him sufficient funds to finish the church and build that spire. We are now in the new town Moate, where there is a handsome terrace of late Georgian houses of classical proportions with spoke fanlights over simple doorways. It's a beautiful residential area, probably built about 1820 or 30 by the Quakers, the wealthier ones here. It was after this area was known as Free Market. Then it became a sort of a respectable residential area. Georgian houses were built by the wealthier Quakers all around the country. Those two houses here, they would be the better ones of that terrace of houses. There is a lovely terrace of houses up along on the far side, late Georgian, not as fine houses as those, but fine houses. When I knew them first, it'd be the doctors, the solicitor, the vet, people like that would have owned them. They'd be difficult, big houses to keep, but they are the last of the Georgian houses built in this area. This is Weaver's Row. It marks the spot where there were a line of houses for weavers with large windows to facilitate their work. The spinning for the wool and linen was done in the factories at the new town, and the weaving was done by the people of the house, the women especially, on Weaver's Row. This is the courthouse on the main street, built in 1831. It's an unusual building. It has a two-story facade, 3 bays divided by 2 Doric pilasters. In 1834, a jail or bridewell was established beside the courthouse. This was to replace the old jail that was at the new town. It contains the cells where the prisoners were held, the guard room and the separate recreation areas for men and women, they all remain unaltered to this day. It also has many other historical items worth seeing, and so it is now a museum well worth a visit. Daniel O'Connell came to Moate in 1834 to open the National Bank, which was situated opposite the courthouse. The bank was formed by a group of MPs to provide capital for Irish economic development and to serve the needs of small traders, tenant farmers, as well as those of the gentry. O'Connell got a great reception in Moate, and an address of welcome was part of that reception. We are standing here on the junction of Station Road and Main Street. Station Road was originally the old road to Ballymore and the entrance of the old Dublin Road into Moate. At this junction here, you had what they call the place where the stagecoaches stopped. Now, stagecoaches had to be serviced. They had to have facilities for people staying and eating and resting. They also had to have facilities for horses, for feeding them, for changing them. So it would have been a very busy place here. That junction changed when the first train came. That was the time, of course, it got the name Station Road. Moate Station became one of the most important places in the town. It had connected the Moate with the rest of the country. It was of great benefit to the cattle and sheep fairs. Moate now was one of the more important centres for fairs and markets. All heavy goods coming to Moate, such as timber, machinery, coal and supplies for shops such as Guinness, came by train. There was a special train called the mail train that carried post across the country. The railway system was built at a very important time in the life of the local community. It was during the period of the Great Famine. At the time, there was little by way of employment. William Dorgan was the contractor. He rented farms along the way to feed the estimate 600 horses that were required for the project. Over 1,000 men were employed in the construction of the Moate to Athlone section. It reached Moate in 1850. The first train ran on the 1st of August 1851, and the line was officially opened on the 15th of August 1852. The railway became a major source of employment. In Mullingar, about 400 people were employed. The jobs included drivers and firemen, signalmen, porters, boilermen, messengers. Women were employed for the catering facilities. One of the most impressive features of the line was its many stone bridges, which still stand witness to the stone craftsmanship of the time. When it was reduced to a single line in the 1920s, they had to meet at specific places. Among the most frequent users of the railway were people emigrating to America, Britain and other lands. It is recorded that large numbers from Streamstown, Castletown, Dysart and Moate took the train to Dublin to board a ship taking them to the Argentine. In the early years of the railway, there were 4 classes of ticket offered by the Midland Great Western Railway. The 4-class passengers were mostly migrant labourers, and they stood in open-top wagons. First-class passengers enjoyed dining facilities. Train services for passengers ceased to exist from Moate to Athlone from the 1st of October 1987. Special trains to Knock or GA specials, they kept running, as did good trains into the 1990s. This is Church Street, probably named Church Street because of the 2 churches there. The first church in Church Street was built in 1770. The site for the building was donated by the Hancock family. Permission was given to build it on condition that no door opened onto the main street. It was one of the few pre-Catholic emancipation churches. On the opposite side of the road there was a wall known as the Hanging Wall. There it is said that anyone who was hanged during the week was left out on that wall on Sunday mornings for the benefit of people coming out from Mass. Later it served as a boys' national school from 1872 to 1938. It then became known as Patrick's Hall and was used for a variety of social activities. It is now part of the site of the Tourard Theatre and the restaurant and office complex in the area. Tourard means the high bleaching ground. The linen industry was one of the more important industries in Moate at the time. It was labour intensive, and the bleaching of the linen was an important for the finishing of the product. A bleaching ground was situated on the south side of the town on the esker which runs in an east-westerly direction. St. Patrick's Church, which replaced the old one, was opened in 1868. Lord Castlemaine gave the site for the church on what was known as the Fair Green. The church is often referred to as the Green. It was built of red sandstone from Knockdominey. The tower is of limestone. The Convent of Mercy, which was located on the north side of the street, was founded by a local lady, Mrs. Mary Colgan, and 3 Mercy sisters from Kells. Mrs. Colgan, who owned a drapery and grocery business in the main street, donated her property for the establishment of a convent and primary school in 1861. Later she purchased O'Hanargate House and land for the school. This is Moate Community School, established in 1997 with the amalgamation of the Convent of Mercy, the Carmelite College and the Vocational School. Imagine you're at a Moate fair about 60 years ago. The town is full of people and cattle. And here's a man here trying to sell a few cattle, and a fella here from England or the north buying them. And he asks him how much does he want. And of course he never gave him as much as he asked for. And the man says, £40. And the man puts down the hand, slaps the hand, and he says, 38. Oh God, you couldn't get him away if you'd been away at 38. Neighbour comes in and says, will you divide it? Oh no, oh here, put out your hand, divide it. 39. Okay, we'll divide it. And a bargain is made. And that's the way cattle were bought and sold in the town of Moate. We are here at the Gap House. There was the custom gap here. There was tolls here taken up for material coming in and out of the town. Also a mile out the road there was a place called Campfield. After the Battle of Ballinamuck, the soldiers and of the British Army heading back to Dublin stayed there for a while under the command of Cornwallis. Irish prisoners were brought to Dublin and executed. French prisoners were treated as prisoners of war and were free. This house was built in the 1700s. It's remembered especially in 1798 when the British Army were coming back from the Battle of Ballinamuck under the leadership of Cornwallis. Cornwallis and his generals, they came and stayed here while the army stayed out in Campfield. It's also the place where Father Thomas Moate lived. He was quite famous because he worked all his life in the Argentine with the Irish, came back here and retired in part of this house with his sister. He's buried in Rosemount and he was buried in 1903. This is the house of Adam Scholes, who was born here, emigrated to America, worked in Detroit, became very successful, went blind, wrote poetry, and is famous as the blind poet of Detroit. His parents are buried here in the local churchyard. This is the home of Liam Cox. 1908 to 2002, writer, historian, teacher, gentleman. This is St. Mary's Church of Ireland, built in 1782. We are now in Church Street. It was renovated and enlarged in 1819. Moate Memorial Garden. The idea for a 1916 commemorative garden was inspired by the national celebration of the 100th anniversary of the 1916 Rising. New beech hedging was planted along with 7 trees representing the 7 signatories of the proclamation. This seat in Moate Memorial Garden was presented by Moate Feroiga. A commemorative plaque, flagpole and flag were also erected at that time. Of particular importance in the Memorial Garden is this stone erected to the memory of Patrick Kelly, a local man, a local soldier, who was the first soldier to be killed in active service in Ireland since the Civil War. I am standing here at the entrance of Doonashee Amenity and Heritage Park. It wasn't always the beautiful place that it is now. Way back in 1870, Canon Carney purchased this park from the Jones family for the purpose of providing facilities for those who had a donkey or a cow and had no place for it to graze. It would have been on the Long Acre. Now, since that, a very enthusiastic group of people have, with great creativity, have set out to make it what it is, a beautiful place of history and heritage. So, Moate has had an interesting past. A word of gratitude to the many who have given so much of their time and talent in putting this story together. Sean Keane, a local man, who besides having a love of the place, has a great love and knowledge of its history. Personalities like the Dáil Gillivan, Lord rest him, who could stop you on the street and talk and tell you about the characters that lived there and the story of the houses that were there. Local teachers, Nuala McDermott and Olive Quinn, both of whom were so supportive in writing and editing this work. Their technical skills with the computer was such a great help. Martina Griffin, who keeps the Historical Society alive and looks after the museum, we thank her for her contribution to the story. Thanks to our cameramen, Mick Bracken and Stephen Rosney. Thank you for your patience and your skills in producing this work. From Father Jimmy, thanks and goodbye for now.
Oh, the breath of the morning, sweetened by springtime, whispers its beautiful evergreen tale. The water blue heavens are brushed by the sunlight, and the meadow wears mist like a veil. Moate, my old friend, don't you remember me? Moate, my old friend, I've finally come home to thee. Oh, the lilt of the voices in everyday talking, smiling old faces like arms open wide, all carry the message that life is worth living, and give me this warm glow inside. Moate, my old friend, don't you remember me? Moate, my old friend, I've finally come home to thee. We're two of a kind, I feel like God made me from part of you. And these days I find I'm only at peace in the heart of you. When you were all that my eyes had to look at, I don't believe I really saw you at all. But now that I travel, I've learned with each footstep, and you've grown more precious with each port of call. Moate, my old friend, don't you remember me? Moate, my old friend, I finally come home to thee. I finally come home to thee.